Beneath Idaho's rugged mountains and sprawling plains, ancient stories whisper through the pines. Hidden in mist-covered lakes and forgotten caves, legends have taken root and refused to die. Today, we're bringing 14 haunting Idaho legends back to life. Charlie, the Payette Lake monster. Deep in the crystal waters of Payette Lake, something ancient glides beneath the surface. The locals call it Charlie, a mysterious creature first spotted in 1920 when workers at a nearby sawmill reported seeing a massive, serpent-like beast with dinosaur features and rough, dark skin. Since then, hundreds of sightings have followed, each adding to the legend of Idaho's own Loch Ness Monster. Witnesses describe Charlie as 30 to 40 feet long, with a dinosaur-shaped head, humped back, and powerful swimming ability that creates unusual wakes across the normally calm waters. Some claim to have seen it basking near the surface on sunny days, while others report violent thrashing that sends waves crashing to shore when no boats are nearby. In 1954, a group of over 30 people watched in awe as the creature swam alongside their boat for several minutes before disappearing into the depths. Locals insist this is no mere fish or floating log. Charlie moves with purpose and intelligence, sometimes seeming to observe humans from a distance. Many theories exist about what Charlie might be: a prehistoric creature trapped in the lake when ancient waters receded, an undiscovered species that evolved in isolation, or something else entirely. Scientists remain skeptical, but those who've seen the creature with their own eyes need no convincing. Today, visitors to McCall still scan the water's surface, hoping for a glimpse of Idaho's most famous cryptid. And on quiet evenings, when the lake turns glass smooth at sunset, locals still warn boaters to keep watch for unusual ripples, because Charlie is still there, swimming in the cold, deep waters of Payette Lake, the water babies of Massacre Rocks. Along the winding Snake River, near what is now called Massacre Rocks State Park, a chilling sound sometimes rises above the rushing water. High-pitched wails, like infants crying in distress, echo from the river at dusk. The Shoshone people have long warned visitors about the water babies, malevolent spirits who lure the curious to watery deaths. According to legend, these spirits originated during a time of great famine. Desperate tribal members, unable to feed their children, made the heartbreaking decision to drown their babies in the river. But the infant spirits never left. Instead, they transformed into vengeful entities that haunt the waters to this day. Fishermen report hearing the eerie cries when alone on the water, especially as darkness falls. Some have felt small, cold hands tugging at their legs while waiting, pulling them toward deeper water. Park rangers avoid discussing the legends publicly, but privately admit to strange sounds that can't be explained by wildlife or the river's natural acoustics. In the 1970s, a family camping near the river reported seeing small, glistening figures playing in the shallows at night. When they approached, the figures vanished underwater, leaving behind tiny, wet footprints on the rocks. The family packed up and left before sunrise, refusing to ever return. The Shoshone advise against answering or investigating the cries. Those who follow the sounds too far from shore rarely return. Even today, tribal elders caution children to stay away from certain bends in the river, especially after sunset when the water babies are most active. Their cries, innocent and pitiful, mask an ancient hunger that the rushing waters of the Snake River can never wash away. Nimagar, little people of the caves. Hidden in the remote caves of southeastern Idaho live the Nimagar, fierce dwarf-like beings from Shoshone and Bannock tribal lore. Standing just 2 feet tall with disproportionately large heads and extraordinary strength, these creatures are far from the friendly gnomes of European fairy tales. They are hunters, warriors, and survivors who fiercely protect their underground territories. The name Nimagar translates roughly to people-eaters, a warning about their rumored appetite for human flesh. Tribal stories describe them using poisoned arrows and small but deadly bows to take down enemies many times their size. Their most frightening quality isn't their appetite or weapons, but their intelligence. They set traps, create diversions, and lure unsuspecting travelers away from groups. In the 1930s, a shepherd reported finding a cave entrance lined with tiny footprints. Inside were small tools, weapons, and what appeared to be miniature beds. When he returned with others the next day, the cave was empty, with all traces of habitation removed. The only evidence of his story was a small, crude arrow embedded in his pack. The Nimagar are said to be most active at dusk and dawn, using the half-light to move between their cave dwellings. They avoid direct confrontation with humans unless cornered or if their territory is violated. Even today, tribal members avoid certain caves, and experienced outdoorsmen sometimes report feeling watched when exploring remote areas. Scientists dismiss the legends as explanations for natural phenomena or misidentified animals, but the consistency of the stories across generations makes many wonder. Perhaps in the vast wilderness of Idaho, in caves yet undiscovered, the Nimagar still thrive, watching cautiously as humans venture closer to their hidden world. Stick Indians. In the dense forests of northern Idaho, where shadows grow long and the pine canopy blocks the sky, native tribes speak in hushed tones about the Stick Indians. These nocturnal forest spirits are not true Indians, but supernatural beings who mimic human voices to lure travelers deep into the woods after dark, where they become hopelessly lost. The Nez Perce, Coeur d'Alene, and other tribes developed strict rules about these entities. Never respond to voices calling from the forest at night, never speak their name aloud in the woods, and always return to camp before sunset. Those who ignore these warnings often vanish without a trace or return changed, confused with gaps in their memory. Hunters describe hearing familiar voices, friends, family members, children, calling for help from just beyond the firelight. Others report whistling sounds that seem to come from all directions at once, disorienting them in familiar territory. The Stick Indians are said to carry stone knives and have the power to paralyze humans with fear or confusion. In the 1800s, a trapper wrote in his journal about being followed for 3 days by unseen presences that mimicked his companions' voices. Each night, the voices grew closer to his camp. On the 4th night, he abandoned his traps and supplies, fleeing the area entirely. Years later, he still refused to return to that valley. Modern hikers sometimes report unexplained phenomena in Idaho's backcountry: strange whistling, disorientation in areas they know well, or the sensation of being watched. Park rangers attribute these experiences to wildlife, wind, or the mind playing tricks in isolation. But tribal elders know better. They still warn young people. When darkness falls in the forest and you hear someone calling your name, don't answer, and whatever you do, don't follow. The Headless Rider of Idaho City. The old mining roads around Idaho City are haunted by more than just memories of the gold rush. On moonless nights, when fog settles into the valleys, locals report seeing the Headless Rider, a ghostly figure on horseback, carrying what appears to be his own severed head beside him as he gallops through the mist. According to legend, the rider was once a notorious outlaw who terrorized the mining camps of the 1860s. After a particularly brutal robbery, vigilantes caught him and, in their fury, hanged him and then decapitated him as a warning to others. They buried his body in an unmarked grave but kept his head in a wooden box as proof of his death. Shortly after, the head mysteriously disappeared, and that's when the sightings began. The phantom is most often seen near the old cemetery or along the narrow mountain roads leading to abandoned mining claims. His horse makes no sound as it runs, and a faint blue light glows where the rider's head should be. Those who've encountered him describe an overwhelming sense of dread and a sudden bone-deep cold that lingers for days afterward. In the 1950s, a family driving back from Idaho City reported that their car stalled on a deserted stretch of road. As the father attempted repairs, the others saw a horseman approaching through the fog. As it passed, they realized with horror that the rider had no head. Their car mysteriously started moments later, and they fled the area in terror. Local historians note that records from the vigilante days are spotty at best, making it impossible to identify the headless outlaw. But that hasn't stopped the legend from growing. Even today, late-night drivers on the winding roads around Idaho City keep a nervous eye on the fog banks and mist-filled ravines, hoping not to encounter the headless rider on his eternal journey to reclaim what he lost. The phantom jogger of Canyon Hill. On the dark, winding roads of Canyon Hill and Caldwell, drivers have reported a terrifying encounter that leaves them shaken and questioning their sanity. a lone jogger dressed in dark clothes appears suddenly on the roadside just after sunset. As cars approach, the figure begins running alongside them, easily keeping pace even as vehicles accelerate to highway speeds. Those who've seen the phantom jogger describe a tall, lean man with an unnaturally fluid stride. His feet seem to barely touch the ground, and his face, when glimpsed through side windows, appears gaunt and expressionless. Most disturbing of all, he matches the car's speed precisely, staring directly at the driver before suddenly vanishing. The legend began in the 1970s when a teenage couple driving home from a date reported a man running beside their car at over 50 miles per hour. When they stopped to see if he needed help, there was no one there. Since then, dozens of similar encounters have been reported, always on the same stretch of road, always after dark. Local historians believe the phantom may be the spirit of a track star who died while jogging on Canyon Hill in the 1960s, struck by a hit-and-run driver who was never identified. His restless spirit seems doomed to run the same route forever, perhaps searching for the driver who took his life and left him on the roadside. Some rational explanations have been offered: reflections, shadows cast by passing cars, or optical illusions created by the hill's unique topography. But these don't account for the consistent descriptions across decades and from witnesses who had never heard the legend before their encounter. Today, young drivers in Caldwell sometimes challenge each other to drive Canyon Hill after dark, hoping to glimpse the legendary runner. But those who've actually seen him rarely make the trip again, unwilling to look out their window and see the impossible. A man running faster than any human should, with eyes that seem to look right through you. The Bear Lake Monster. In the deep turquoise waters of Bear Lake, straddling the Idaho-Utah border, something massive stirs beneath the surface. Since the 1860s, locals have reported sightings of an enormous serpent-like creature, dark brown or green, with a mouth large enough to swallow a man whole and a body as thick as a barrel. Early Mormon settlers described the Bear Lake Monster as 90 feet long with short, powerful legs and a head resembling a crocodile's. It moved through water with incredible speed, sometimes leaving the lake to crawl along the shore, leaving strange tracks that puzzled even experienced hunters. In 1874, interest in the creature peaked when a respected local citizen claimed to have seen it clearly. According to his account, published in the Deseret News, the monster had ears or bunches on its head and a red mouth with fearsome teeth. The creature splashed violently before submerging, leaving waves that rocked his boat dangerously. Skeptics dismissed the stories as hoaxes or misidentifications of common animals like beavers or floating logs. But sightings continue to this day. In 2002, a family picnicking at the lake reported seeing what looked like an upturned boat moving against the current before disappearing underwater. When they checked with rangers, they learned no boats had capsized that day. Scientists suggest that if any creature does inhabit Bear Lake, it might be a relict population of prehistoric fish trapped when ancient Lake Bonneville receded thousands of years ago. But locals prefer their monster legends, sharing stories during summer bonfires along the shore. For those visiting Bear Lake today, the monster adds a thrilling edge to swimming and boating activities. And while you're enjoying the Caribbean of the Rockies, keep your eyes on the water, because something large and ancient might be watching from below. The Weiser River serpent. Flowing through the rugged landscapes of western Idaho, the Weiser River hides more than just trout and salmon in its depths. For over a century, farmers, fishermen, and travelers have reported seeing a giant serpent moving against the current, its dark scales glistening in the sunlight before it disappears beneath the surface. The first documented sighting came in 1894 when a group of ranchers watering their cattle saw what they described as a snake as thick as a man's thigh and longer than a wagon train. The creature moved with purpose upstream, frightening livestock and leaving the men stunned. Within days, similar reports emerged from miles away along the river's course. Witnesses consistently described the Weiser River serpent as 20 to 30 feet long with a ridge-backed appearance and small, horn-like protrusions on its head. Unlike many cryptids, this creature is most often seen in broad daylight, typically during the late spring when the river runs high with snowmelt. In the 1950s, a family picnicking near the river photographed what appeared to be a large, serpentine form moving through the rapids. The blurry image made local newspapers, but was ultimately dismissed as a floating log or debris. Those who saw it in person, however, insisted that it moved with deliberate, undulating motions impossible for inanimate objects. Some biologists suggest the sightings might be of abnormally large sturgeon that occasionally venture up from the Snake River, while skeptics point to the power of suggestion and the river's tendency to create optical illusions as water flows over submerged objects. Yet the stories persist. Each year, a handful of credible witnesses report encounters with something unexplainable in the Weiser River. For locals, the serpent has become part of the region's identity, a reminder that even in our modern world, mysteries still swim through Idaho's waters. Lava hot spring spirits. The healing waters of lava hot springs have drawn people for centuries, from native tribes seeking medicinal cures to modern tourists looking to relax. But not all visitors to these geothermal pools come from this world. The springs, locals say, are home to spirits who never left the sacred waters they loved in life. The Shoshone and Bannock people believed the springs were a gateway between worlds, a place where the veil was thin. They performed healing ceremonies here, but always with careful reverence for the spirits who guarded the waters. When European settlers arrived, many reported unusual experiences. Ghostly figures seen from the corner of the eye, disembodied voices, and sudden temperature changes even in the heat of the springs. Most commonly reported is the Lady in White, believed to be the spirit of a young woman who drowned in the early 1920s. Visitors describe seeing a pale figure in a flowing white dress who walks along the water's edge before dawn, sometimes bending as if to test the temperature with her hand before disappearing into the morning mist. Hotel staff and spa workers tell of strange occurrences after closing. Towels neatly folded when no one was in the building, wet footprints appearing on dry floors, and the sensation of being watched while closing up for the night. Maintenance workers refuse to make repairs alone, especially in the oldest sections of the facilities. In 1987, a night watchman quit his job after claiming to see multiple figures bathing in the springs hours after closing. When he called out, they turned toward him, revealing faces he described as not quite solid before they faded from sight, leaving the water's surface unbroken. Today, the springs remain a popular tourist destination, with most visitors unaware of the spiritual history surrounding them. But for those who arrive at dawn or linger after sunset, there's always a chance of sharing the healing waters with guests from another time, spirits who found such peace in the springs that they never left. The Goatman of Boise River. Along the Boise River greenbelt, where joggers and cyclists enjoy scenic paths during the day, a more sinister figure is said to emerge after dark. The Goatman, a creature with the body of a man and the head and legs of a goat, has been reported lurking near the water's edge since the 1970s, watching humans with unnatural interest. Those who claim to have seen the Goatman describe him as over 6 feet tall, covered in dark fur, with curved horns and yellow eyes that reflect light like an animal's. He walks upright, but can drop to all fours to move with frightening speed through the underbrush. The air around him smells of wet fur and something more pungent, a musky odor that lingers long after the creature has gone. The legend gained traction in 1985 when a group of teenagers camping near the river reported being terrorized by a creature that matched the Goatman's description. It circled their campsite for hours, making strange, throaty sounds before vanishing when they shined flashlights toward the noise. The next morning, they found their food supplies scattered and strange, cloven footprints pressed into the mud. Some versions of the story claim the Goatman was once a scientist whose experiments went horribly wrong, transforming him into a monster. Others suggest he's a manifestation of ancient pagan deities, drawn to the river as humans encroached on wild spaces. Park rangers and police dismiss the stories as urban legends fueled by overactive imaginations and the occasional transient living near the river. But each year, new reports emerge of strange sightings, unexplained noises, and unsettling encounters on the greenbelt after sunset. For residents of Boise, the Goatman has become a cautionary tale, a reason not to linger along the river after dark. Whether real or imagined, his presence has altered how people interact with one of the city's most beautiful natural spaces when shadows grow long and the mind begins to wonder what might be watching from the darkness. The Coyote trickster. In the rolling sage plains and dramatic canyons of southern Idaho, native tribes speak of a shapeshifter who walks between worlds, Coyote, the trickster spirit. Neither fully animal nor god, Coyote appears as a dusty furred animal, a handsome young man, or even an ordinary stone, depending on his purpose and mood. Unlike ghost stories meant simply to frighten, Coyote tales serve as both entertainment and education. The Shoshone, Nez Perce, and Coeur d'Alene people tell of Coyote's endless schemes, sometimes benefiting humans by bringing fire or teaching survival skills, other times punishing the greedy or foolish through elaborate pranks with painful consequences. One famous story describes how Coyote created the Snake River's twisting path by dragging his tail as he ran from an enemy, carving the deep canyon that splits Idaho's landscape. Another tells of how he scattered the stars across the night sky, creating patterns to guide travelers home. But for every helpful act, there's a counterbalance of mischief: stolen food, misleading directions, or deceptive visions. Those who claim modern encounters with Coyote describe a feeling of sudden disorientation in familiar territory, or meeting a helpful stranger on remote roads who provides assistance but vanishes impossibly quickly. Others report seeing a coyote watching them with unnaturally intelligent eyes before walking away on 2 legs instead of 4. Tribal elders warn that Coyote is drawn to human arrogance and certainty. He appears most often to those who think they know everything or who venture into nature without proper respect. His lessons are rarely gentle, but always memorable. Today, as new generations of Idahoans reconnect with the land's indigenous history, Coyote stories are experiencing a revival. Whether ancient wisdom or living spirit, the trickster remains a powerful reminder that in Idaho's wild places, nothing is quite as it seems, and wisdom often comes disguised as foolishness. Bigfoot of the panhandle. The dense, mist-shrouded forests of northern Idaho provide the perfect hiding place for North America's most legendary cryptid. In the remote stretches of the Idaho panhandle, where vast wilderness areas remain rarely touched by human feet, reports of Bigfoot sightings have persisted for generations. Long before the creature had a name in popular culture, native tribes spoke of the hairy man of the mountains, who left massive footprints and eerie whistling calls echoing through the valleys. The Nez Perce called this being Stiama, warning children not to wander too far from camp for fear of the forest giant. Modern sightings often share common elements: a tall, broad-shouldered figure covered in dark brown or reddish fur, walking with a fluid stride through terrain humans find challenging. Witnesses describe an overwhelming musky odor and a feeling of being watched before actually spotting the creature. Most encounters end with Bigfoot retreating silently into the underbrush, moving with surprising speed and agility for its size. In 1969, a logging crew near Priest Lake reported finding footprints 16 inches long and seeing a massive figure watching them from the tree line. When they approached, it disappeared without a sound despite its immense size. Since then, dozens of similar accounts have emerged from hunters, hikers, and campers. Physical evidence remains elusive. Questionable footprints, unexplained hair samples, and grainy photographs that prove nothing conclusively. Yet the consistency of reports from credible outdoors people keeps the legend alive in Idaho's North Country. For skeptics, Bigfoot represents the power of suggestion and the human tendency to find patterns in randomness. For believers, the creature embodies something more profound: proof that even in our connected, mapped world, true mysteries remain in the wild places. And in few states are those places as vast and untamed as in Idaho's emerald forests. The Devil's Washbowl. Tucked deep within the rugged Owyhee Mountains lies a place locals call the Devil's Washbowl, a natural swimming hole where crystal-clear water fills a perfectly circular basin carved into solid rock. The beauty of this hidden spot belies its dark reputation as one of Idaho's most haunted locations. According to legend, the pool was once a sacred site for indigenous ceremonies before gold-seeking settlers arrived in the mid-1800s. A group of miners, finding native people performing rituals near the water, massacred them in a senseless act of violence. Since that day, the pool has been tainted by tragedy. The water remains unnaturally cold, even on the hottest summer days, and no matter how still the air, small ripples constantly disturb the surface, as if invisible fingers are trailing through the water. Visitors report hearing whispers and soft singing in languages they don't recognize. Others describe seeing shadowy figures watching from the surrounding rocks, only to vanish when approached. Most disturbing are accounts of swimmers feeling hands grabbing at their legs, trying to pull them deeper into the pool where the bottom seems to drop away into impossible darkness. In the 1970s, a geologist studying the formation discovered what appeared to be bone fragments embedded in the rock walls below the waterline. Tests later confirmed they were human, estimated to be over 150 years old. Shortly after this discovery, the geologist reported waking in his tent to find it filled with water, despite being camped well above the pool on dry ground. Local ranchers avoid the area entirely, claiming that livestock won't approach the water and dogs bark uncontrollably at nothing visible. Even experienced outdoors people report feeling an instinctive unease that drives them away before nightfall. Today, the Devil's Washbowl remains difficult to access, protected by rough terrain and perhaps by whatever forces linger there. Those who know its location often refuse to share directions, believing some places are better left undisturbed, especially when those who died there seem unwilling to rest. The haunted old Idaho Penitentiary. Behind the sandstone walls of Boise's old Idaho Penitentiary, the past refuses to stay silent. Operational from 1872 to 1973, the prison housed some of the West's most dangerous criminals and witnessed countless acts of violence, suffering, and death. Today, it stands as a museum and, according to many, one of the most actively haunted buildings in the state. Visitors and staff report cold spots that defy explanation, even on summer days when temperatures outside reach triple digits. The solitary confinement cells, known as Siberia, for their brutal conditions, seem particularly active. People describe feeling invisible hands on their shoulders or hearing raspy breathing when no one else is nearby. The most famous spirit is believed to be Raymond Allen Snowden, known as Idaho's Jack the Ripper, who was executed in 1957 for brutally murdering a woman. After death by hanging, his body was placed in the Rose Garden building, where witnesses claim to hear his footsteps pacing back and forth. Some have even reported seeing a male figure with a broken neck, wearing prison clothes from another era. In the women's ward, built in 1920, the sound of a woman sobbing can sometimes be heard, believed to be Lyda Southard, a notorious Black Widow who poisoned multiple husbands. Though she was eventually released, her presence seems to linger in her former cell. Paranormal investigators have recorded unexplained voices, captured strange orbs of light in photographs, and documented equipment failures that occur only in certain areas of the prison. One investigation team left audio equipment running overnight and returned to find male voices discussing an escape plan in a building that had been empty and locked. Even skeptical guards who worked at the penitentiary before its closure reported unexplainable events. Keys missing from locked drawers only to reappear hours later, cell doors closing on their own, and the sensation of being followed when walking the grounds after dark. For those brave enough to visit, the old Idaho Penitentiary offers regular tours and occasional overnight paranormal investigations. But be warned, some say that the spirits of those who lived and died behind these walls can follow visitors home, bringing pieces of the prison's dark history into the present. If you enjoyed the video, please click the like button and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you in the next one.